Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Ali. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I love and appreciate and adore you so much. It is reading wrap-up time. It is the end of May. It's May. It's May. It's the end of May. Reading wrap-up time. So, I will say, I'm fairly proud of myself this month. I've been in a little bit of a reading slump for a while where I was only reading like 5-6 books. I read 10 books this month and it was a good reading month. Most of these books are 4 and 5 stars. I have multiple 5 stars and I have not 5-starred a book in forever. So I'm very excited and we'll jump right into it. So, without surprise, my first read of the month and my first 5-star of the month was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I adored this book. This is, I think, my favorite Emily Henry that she's written so far. I've read all of her books and I think this one is my favorite. It's just perfect summer beach vibes. It kind of gives me like adult The Summer I Turned Pretty series. So this follows a group of friends. They have, or one of the people in their friend group has a beach house that they went to every summer growing up. Even after they went their separate ways and got married and moved and went to college, they always every summer met up and stayed the summer at the summer house. And this year when they show up, they get the bomb dropped on them that this summer place is being sold. So it's their last year that they can spend together in this normal, convenient place. So they're really trying to like reminisce on the old memories and hold on to them and make new ones and appreciate each other and value the friendships they have. I love that aspect of it. The way she writes about these characters and their friendships and like the challenges they're going through in their individual lives, even when they're not the main character, I really connected with and loved. And then the romance part of this was also good. I will say, I think I 5-starred this book more for the friendship aspect than the romance, because the romance is a lot of miscommunication. The romance follows our main character Harriet and her now ex-fiance Wynn. Harriet and Wynn had met at the summer camp and started dating. They were together for like 6 years and engaged. They broke off their engagement and you basically spend the whole book trying to figure out what happened. And it's also a fake dating thing. They didn't tell any of their friends that they broke up. And since it's the last year that they're all going to be together, they don't want to ruin the vibe by telling everybody that their like mom and dad couple has broken up. So they're fake dating each other and you're trying to figure out why they're not together anymore, what went wrong. And then there's all kind of, you can feel all this trouble brewing up between all the other friends. I really enjoyed it. Did the romance get annoying at sometimes? Yes, but I honestly liked it for how she wrote the friendship of it more than the romance. It had some really good quotes. I annotated it. I loved it. This will most likely be a reread. I feel like I don't reread that many books anymore, but I'm sure I will at some point. I loved this book. I'm a big Emily Henry fan and she popped off. She did it again. So my first 5-star of the month and first read of the month went to Emily Henry. So then my next read, I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. The first 3 or 4 books I got in my latest book haul. I will tag that video. And in that video, I talked about how I grew up in a very Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars house. I grew up watching the movies. Anytime they're on TV, they just like autoplay in my house. But I had never read the books. So I got The Hobbit and read it. I 4-starred it. It was good. Part of me like wishes that it was longer. Like being somebody that grew up on the movies, and they're like 3-hour movies where I had this whole book read in 3 hours. I feel like they developed it more in the movies, but the book is still really good. And I definitely still want to continue reading the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy. Fight a dragon and find gold, and there's this magic ring with this creepy little Gollum guy that I used to scare the crap out of me when I was little. I love these books and I love these movies. So if you're like more of a high fantasy person, I definitely suggest these. But I did 4-star it and I'm glad I finally got around to reading these. I'm surprised that it took me this long. So then next, also from my book haul video, I read Misery by Stephen King. I also did a reading vlog of this book, spoiler free-ish, towards like the end. If you want to watch that, I will tag that as well. This was my very first Stephen King book. I 4-starred this. I did like it. I'm a baby back bitch and I can't do horror. I like thriller, I like true crime, but horror, for whatever reason, it will scare me the rest of my life. I wanted to read some of his books that weren't necessarily horror. So I started with Misery. I knew kind of the premise of this book from the movie, and it's a fairly popular one that people talk about, and it was good. I 4-starred it. My biggest thing is I didn't like the way he ended it. I felt like there was like the beginning setting up the book, the middle at times kind of dragged, and then it was just like boom slap you in the face with action in like the last 3 or 4 chapters, and then it kind of just ended. That's where it fell out for me. But I do suggest Misery if you're an avid Stephen King reader. If you haven't read any of his books and you're also like me and don't want horror, then I do suggest this one. This one follows our main character, Annie and Paul. Paul is a best-selling author. This is his best-selling series, and he ends the series by killing off his main character. Annie is a psychotic superfan. She kidnaps him and holds him hostage in her house and forces him to write her personally more books because she was so angry that he killed off Annie's character. And she's crazy, and people get hurt and lose appendages of many types. There are gory scenes, so if you don't like horror and you also don't like gore, then this might not be for you, because this does very much describe gore, but it's not horror scary. I'm fine with gore because I like thrillers and true crime. I listen to true crime constantly, but I do suggest it, and it was very good, and it was a strong start for Stephen King. So 4 stars. Then my next book was one that I saw a lot on TikTok, and so I picked it up and I ended up 4-starring, but it was Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. So this is actually the second book to When in Rome, which I didn't read. I have it on my nightstand and I was gonna try and have it read before I made this video, but I didn't. So I'm reading it at this moment, but I did technically read them backwards. But I 4-starred this book. Sarah Adams, she writes very small but good quick romances. Liked the characters. This is a bodyguard romance, but it's not her bodyguard, it's her friend's bodyguard. Our main character is Annie and Will. Will is the bodyguard to Annie's brother's fiance. So the first book that I didn't read beforehand is Annie's brother. He gets engaged to this like superstar or singer. So Will is this singer's bodyguard. I don't know if I'm making sense, but Annie and Will, they just know each other through other people. Annie has kind of like the good girl reputation. Everybody's like, oh, she's so sweet, she doesn't do anything wrong, and she's tired of having that reputation, and Will is like, sees her beyond that. I definitely think it's like a boy falls first, and it is bodyguard romance. It had some nice little smut scenes, and for as small as it was, I really liked it. I definitely suggest it. Currently reading the first book, but I probably would suggest reading the first book first. That'll probably make more sense timeline-wise. Check it out if you haven't, it sounds interesting. So then my next 5-star of the month, which was very surprising to me, I 5-starred Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I did not expect to 5-star this, but I did. It had such cute scenes, such cute quotes. I love this book. The way that she writes the characters is what got me. So this follows our main character, Brianna and Jacob. They are both doctors. Brianna is up for a promotion to be like the head nurse, I think. They hire Jacob as her competition for this promotion. So they start off workplace romance enemies. She doesn't like him because he's competing for this job that she's worked for her entire life. And she's like, it's not fair that he just gets to show up and threaten that. So she doesn't like him off the bat, but everybody's talking about how he's such a great, nice person. So she starts giving him a chance, and Jacob's character is he's one of my top favorite book boyfriends now. I love his character so much. He struggles with social anxiety, and the way that she wrote his character is so cute. And somebody with social anxiety, I related to his character a lot. It really dug into like his inner monologues of him overthinking things, and does she really think the way I think? Was what I just said stupid, blah blah blah. So they start off their friendship by writing letters because it's easier for him to write letters to her than talk to her face to face, and it's just they instantly connect, and he is getting out of a relationship with a girl that never understood him, who ends up getting engaged and is marrying his brother. He ends up convincing Brianna to fake date him and be his date to his brother's wedding so that nobody feels bad for him, and she thinks he's still in love with his ex, but he's in love with her, and it's just adorable, and it made me so happy. It made my heart feel things, and I haven't felt that way about a romance book in a while. I really suggest it. If you want a really just wholesome romance book that doesn't have all the miscommunication drama, I highly suggest this. I loved Jacob's character, and I think he complimented Brianna really well. Also, very good smut that I was not expecting. This whole book was unexpected. I really thought that this was just gonna be another like mediocre 3-star romance, but I loved it. And I'm so happy that I read it, and I highly suggest it to you guys. So then my next book was a book that I read at work on my Kindle. I'm currently on overtime at my job again, and I had a lull, but I read The Housemaid. This was another book that I saw going around on TikTok for people that like thrillers. I ended up 4-starring this. I did like it. It's one of the first thrillers that I over 3-starred in a while. This gives very much Verity vibes. If you're someone that likes Verity by Colleen Hoover, then I definitely suggest it. If you liked that storyline and the way kind of whole weird mom in love with the husband thing is, I definitely suggest it. Big Verity vibes. It's Verity if it was more adult, because it has more smut and it is a little bit like deeper. The mother in this is perfectly healthy and is actively like locking her in rooms and creeping her out and trying to kill her, and there's a whole big plot twist that really makes the difference between Verity in this book. But all in all, if you like Verity, I suggest this book. Our main character is fresh out of prison and she is looking for a job, fakes a resume and gets hired as a maid for this rich couple, where she ends up falling in love with the husband. There is a creepy child and the creepy husband and the creepy wife, and the person that works with them trying to convince her to get out because she's in trouble. Big plot twist you don't see happening. And there's also a second book to it, which I will definitely read at some point. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But good. If you're a Verity fan, I highly suggest this one. And it was really good. And I first started. So then a little bit of a left turn-ish. My mom was going through all of her like classic old books that she's had since she was young. And so she gave me some of those. Read this book a million times when I was little. It was one of like the first books that I really remember reading when I was young. And that is The Secret Language by Ursula Nordstrom. This is a very old copy of this book. It's one from an old library, and like the pages are yellow and yada yada yada. It looks like some of the last times this was like checked out was in the 80s, so it's a very old copy of this book, and it's not a very popular book, but it's definitely like a quick read. It's big font, it's under 200 pages, and it's got cute little illustrations in it, so half the pages are taken up by illustrations. But this is a girl, she goes to a boarding school, and it's her kind of growing up and making friends with the other girls at this boarding school. And it's just very sentimental to me. I 4-starred it. It's not a 5-star book for me anymore because I can read it in an hour. It's sentimental and good, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for more like a classic-y book. I might even get a newer copy of it too. It's just very cute, and it's a nice little coming of age story. So then I went back over to Stephen King and I read Billy Summers. This book I 3-starred. I did not like this as much as Misery. It lagged more for me than what Misery did. And again, I feel like my biggest thing with Stephen King is how he ends things. I always feel like they're rushed. It's always just kind of like intro of the book, random stuff, a little bit of action at the end, and then it's over. So I felt like this maybe could have been 100 pages shorter than what it was. I liked it, but I would recommend Misery over Billy Summers. Billy Summers, our main character, he is hitman for hire, and he prides himself on only like being a hitman for people that he really believes are wrong and doing bad things. And so this target that he has now acquired is basically him trying to figure out if he actually believes that this person deserves to die. Double, triple lives going on and all that jazz. So like it was interesting, but it didn't have me as hooked as what Misery did. So like I still recommend it, but I recommend Misery over this. So then back onto my Kindle, I read what is currently, when I'm recording this, one of like the most viral books at the moment. I read Fourth Wing. I 5-starred it. I loved it. I thought it was incredible. It's extremely hyped right now, but in my opinion, it is not overhyped in any way. It is so good. I have not felt this like enthralled by a fantasy book in forever. It's got fantasy starting to get like romance, so I've read so many that none of them really capture my attention that much anymore. Fourth Wing did. I thought it was incredible. It's got hot people, it's got dragons, it's got magic. I just feel like it kind of takes like the competition, school, government aspects of like the Poppy War, but with like the fun characters of something like an SJM universe. This is a world system where people are trained to ride dragons. That is like their main thing of battle is dragons. And you go through this schooling to become a dragon rider. And whatever dragon you end up pairing with, you have to choose the dragon has to choose you, and you kind of get powers from that dragon. You can like read minds or teleport or make lightning with your hands or like be able to go through walls or like all these crazy things. You can have different positions based on how well you do in this school, but the school is also a survival of the fittest. It's very dangerous. People die all the time. You'll start off with classes of 1,000 people and only have 50 by the end. So our main character has been studying her whole life to be a scribe. She doesn't want to be a dragon rider, but her mother and her older sister, her mother is a general in the army, one of the highest ranking people, and her sister is a very high rank dragon rider as well. So her mom has basically forced her into this. She refuses to have a child that's a scribe. So she forces our main character into this world where she thinks she's immediately gonna die because she's been a very sick, frail child her whole life. And she of course ends up being a bad bitch with super cool powers and super cool dragons. And it's a little bit of a love triangle. There's one love interest that is childhood friends to lovers and one love interest that is enemies to lovers. One of her love interests is her childhood best friend that went to this dragon school a few years before she did, so she hasn't seen him. And one is her mortal enemy. He is the son of the guy that led the resistance, and our main character's mom killed his whole family. So he wants to kill her because he killed her whole family, yada yada yada. It left on the biggest cliffhanger. The second book comes out later this year, I believe. Very good romance, the angst, the pining. This book was incredible. I understand the hype and I really, really suggest it. If you're thinking that you're not gonna like it and it's overhyped, I really suggest it. I don't think it's overhyped in any way. I was so enthralled with this book. I was texting my friends while I was reading it, trying to get them to read it with me. If there's one book that I don't regret ever taking the jump on, it's Fourth Wing. It was incredible. And yeah. And then finally, my last book that I read this month, I 3-starred. It was What My Mother and I Don't Talk About. This is another book that I felt a little bit weird about rating because it is kind of a short story collection of memoirs. It's 14 different authors writing about like their own personal issues and stories and relationships with their mothers and all the things that they wish they would have and could tell their mom that they can't and they won't. And basically like, this is why we don't have the relationship that I wish, this is why we don't have this is why I feel this way. And it's kind of like these small little 2-3 paragraph memoirs, basically confessions of all these different authors and their relationships with their mom. I liked it. I definitely have parts that like I highlighted and that I related to. I would have related to this book more if it was What My Dad and I Don't Talk About. I have daddy issues. I have a good relationship with my mother, so I didn't connect with this book on all the ways that I normally do when it's things writing about bad relationships with dads. Hello internet, putting that out there. But I do suggest it. Light trigger warning for like general abuse and sexual abuse. I think that this was good. I feel weird about rating people's memoir type things because I don't want to be like, your life story is better than this person's life story. I was expecting a little bit more from it than what it gave, and if it seems like something that you'd be interested in reading, go for it, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, these are the 10 books that I read in May. I believe that January, February, March, April. These are the 10 books that I read in May. This is one of my biggest reading months that I've had in a while. I've been in quite a slump pretty much all year. I think I'm getting back into the swing of things. I already have books that I'm starting to read and lined up that I'm gonna start reading. And yeah, I'm a little bit behind. My reading goal for this year was 150. I think I just hit 50 books. So I'm a little bit behind, but I think I can still make that goal next coming months. In summer, there's more new book releases that I'm excited about. So I think we're gonna catch up. But these are my 10 books for this month. If we read any of the same books, let me know. If you've read any of these, let me know your opinions on them. Go read these. There wasn't a book that I hated this month. This is the first month that I didn't DNF something, I think like all year. So I suggest pretty much all of these books. Multiple 5 stars, only 2 3 stars. Everything else was a 4. it was a good month. But yeah, thank you guys for being here, spending this time with me. If you want to follow me anywhere on my social medias, they're all down below as always. Down below is my Amazon if you want to send me anything, or PangoBooks if you want to find any of these books secondhand so you don't have to pay full price. Go ahead and do that. But yeah, I will see you guys next week. Happy June. Hopefully you guys have a good reading month. I'm really hoping that I do. And I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet. I love you. Goodbye.